Welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardin Ellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And today we actually got a little bit to talk about. The DNC chairman just announced that maybe it's time to reconsider the order of the early states. It looks like Iowa screwed up so badly that finally people are saying, hey, why are we giving Iowa all of this credence and all of this importance if they can't even count people in a room? Finally, what we've been saying for a decade now, at least mostly all of my adult life, might actually be coming to fruition. Cody, can you tell us what's going on?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, right now, it's pretty preliminary. We have an article I'm going to show you guys from, I believe, USA Today, saying that DNC Chair Tom Perez wants a conversation about the order of primaries. And they also have some New Hampshire updates, but the New Hampshire updates we'll get to maybe a little bit later. But anyway, appearing on the CNN Democratic National Committee Chair Tom Perez said he wanted to have a conversation within the party about the order of states in the Democratic primary election. Citing previous debates within the Democratic Party that led to the elimination of superdelegates after the 2016 election, Perez said the next frontier of discussion in the Democratic Party needs to be, do we need further caucus reform? I don't know. Do we? Anyway, our party is incredibly diverse, and what should the order of our primary cycle be? I think the time is ripe for that conversation, he continued. The Democratic Party has faced some criticism for the lack of diversity in the first states in the Democratic presidential primary race, which began with Iowa and New Hampshire.
Percent white Iowa and like 97.2% white New Hampshire.
Even beyond that, I mean, I would argue if the states were 92% Hispanic, it's just not a good representation of the general electorate of the country, right? Like it's the fact that
Democrats don't care about it that way.
Guess what? I don't care about.
They would think that's better.
Whatever.
That would be intellectually honest.
I don't have the SJW gene to just freak out at all times about everything going on around me. I don't think it's that big a deal. I'm just saying I do agree with the fact that if you have 92% of one ethnic group in a state, that does not represent America as a whole. So it is weird to start.
Well, also, how about just chasing this idea of a perfect slice of every culture in America is so unattainable that you end up doing more destruction than good? Why don't we just go for maybe more diverse? Not perfectly diverse, but just maybe more. Or else maybe we just have it be fair so most states vote in phases based upon alphabetical order. Or, there's a million other different ways to be running this. And traditionally Iowa, because its caucuses were so far apart and they had different intra-county party politics involved in their primaries, they voted themselves and were given more time to do it. Now, when technology is involved, that time necessity goes away, but their schedule didn't because it's preserved in their state constitution, has been approved by everybody else. So they really kind of just got this unfair advantage where so much more attention was paid for them for so long. And so I don't think it's as much a racial question, even though it is fun to poke fun at the party that's constantly talking about it, that it is, such a butt white state. But you have to ask yourself, why does Iowa get all the goodies of both establishment parties? Because regardless, they're getting the goodies of attention and time and resources, and all of their hotels are filling up with everybody's interns that are moving in to crash the state for a month. That's an economic boom. It's a political boom. And the most obscure local state senators in Iowa, for some podunk county, are getting spoiled by presidential candidates, by governors, by everybody that wants a connection with anybody in Iowa that might potentially endorse them if they do run 7 years from now. It just does seem extremely disproportionately unfair. You know what I'm saying? So I think that any party would have to consider trying to find a better way of doing this that's a little bit more representative of the people's feelings in the country.
Yeah. So anyway, moving on to the next thing we have here is I wanted to show you is that now there is a certain state that is gunning for that spot. And I've seen this article I'm showing you guys is from last Friday. So it's from a few days after the Iowa primary disaster, or the Iowa caucus disaster. However, that very day, this has been floating around. So Governor J.B. Pritzker says that Illinois, not Iowa, should go first in primaries. Illinois definitely is the state that's angling for this more than anyone. Pritzker said, I do not think Iowa should go first. We have the most diverse state that you could have for picking a presidential nominee, he said, in reference to Illinois. We have tech, industry, we have agriculture, agriculture. We have rural, ex-urban, urban communities all over the state. We have, every swath of different belief across the state of Illinois. Pritzker will be one of several high-profile Democrats who have called upon their party to reassess the order of nominating states after the Iowa Democratic Party botched the reporting of its caucus results this week. Even before the debacle, many Democrats had expressed frustration with Iowa's lack of racial diversity, charging that it inhibits the campaigns of candidates of color. I would argue the same thing, though. If, like I said, let's say Illinois was 93% Hispanic, it would definitely tilt the early results to a Hispanic candidate, right? Like, I think there definitely should just be let's get a better representative of what the nation looks like. That should be the focus. I agree.
And I don't know. How do you feel, Cody, about Illinois? How do you feel about Chicago deciding which way the United States of America goes?
Well, I mean, they don't decide which way the United States of America goes. They were just primary a whole 7 days before New Hampshire.
But come on. They, with the current news cycle and the way the American political scheme is, I shouldn't say scheme, I should say schema, is the headlines generated by Iowa carry so much sway that people invest entire fortunes in trying to win it. I don't know if I feel comfortable with Iowa being replaced by Chicago. Could we do maybe, I don't know, Wyoming or Kansas?
Yeah, let's just pick another, no offense to Iowa, another random.
Florida. No, Florida's good.
Yeah, let's pick another.
Florida's diverse.
You trust Florida? Doesn't Florida have to recount every election they do?
Yeah, you're right. Broward County's really bad.
Not even Broward. Wasn't there another? I think Florida has to recount every. No, like I said, I don't think there is a perfect state out there. I just do agree. I would feel better if one of those I guess Nevada's close. I would prefer one of those 4 early states to be I mean, there's no offense coming from California. We're going to get, but there is a different, there are some states that are more populated, have more urban areas. I think it would be nice to have one of those first few states be something closer to an Illinois, a state that does have a big metropolitan area. It has big suburban areas. It has some rural urban areas. I get that that's kind of like Iowa as well, where you have Des Moines and then some urban areas around, or suburban areas, or suburban to rural, sorry to say. But I would not be against a larger state that is just a bigger state in America being. Also, I like it because it removes this thing that happens right now where it's Iowa votes, New Hampshire votes, South Carolina votes, Nevada votes, and then it just goes California, Texas, New York, Florida. You know what I mean? And then we just rattle off the most densely populated. I guess that's a better way of phrasing it. I would like a more populous state to be at the beginning there as well. One, you get a better
with a rural state or something.
Yeah, but just you get a better idea of what a big group of Americans will think as opposed to a smaller
this is
group.
Where,
and like I said, it keeps that separated from you get to that part of the race where it's what Michael Bloomberg's doing right now is he's basically saying these early states don't matter. I'm going to win the big ones on Super Tuesday. It would eliminate that a little bit. It would force you to campaign early.
Okay, I've solved this problem, Cody, but I need your help.
Okay.
Who is, this is a sports term, and you're the sports guy more than me. There was, I can't remember if it was in the 80s or the 90s or something, some sports statistician took all of the players in professional baseball and he boiled them down.
You've said this before, dude. I think you're mismatching a couple things together because there's no answer.
No, I'm going to call my dad. I need a lifeline. I'm going to call my dad. We're going to post it.
Because if you're talking about there's multiple things. You could be talking about the Mendoza line.
Yeah, the Mendoza line.
Okay, the Mendoza line's different than what you're talking about. What the Mendoza line refers to is a player who is very good defensively and let's say doing other things. You could survive with them on your roster as long as they hit above about 200 as a batting average.
Okay,
anything
but look
under
at this.
200, which would be the Mendoza line, which means any other tools you bring are outweighed by how much of a detriment you are offensively. That's generally the understanding of what the quote-unquote Mendoza line is.
Yeah.
If you aren't at least at this level, you will be a detriment no matter what your other skills are.
Well, yeah, and so that basically established a threshold in baseball of what's considered worth it in professional baseball.
But that's also already changed.
Oh, it's not. I'm sure it's probably already changed. But I'm just saying American politics needs a Mendoza line. We need to be able to take all of our states and just say okay, cool. The pros and cons of X, Y, or Z.
But here's the thing you're missing. What is the state equivalent of batting average? Baseball, it works because while a player brings many things to a team, one of the most easily measurable quantifiers is batting average. If you're going to be playing in the game, you're going to have to take at bats. And if you never get hits and you never get on base, nowadays people would argue home runs are more important, so you could hit 150 as long as you crank 30 homers, because at least 30 runs you score. I mean, like I said, it changes. The other reason why it's funny analogy, because what that Mendoza line would be today would probably be something radically different in 30, 40 years. And does the government isn't baseball. The government doesn't say, I don't care, I want to win a World Series, break all the rules. The government will fight tooth and nail to defend that ranking system 100 years from now. When we don't even know why we use it anymore, the government will have people pounding the table explaining how we cannot change this number.
Like GDP?
My point, so I would be against that because, like I said, a great example is how in baseball the Mendoza line has shifted so dramatically.
For me, if it could be a manageable state that showed a track record of transparent and efficient elections, okay, coupled with a reasonably diverse cross-section of rural and urban municipalities, I think they should be some of the early voting states.
Illinois would be a good one. Now, I want to get one more thing here.
I don't know if
one
Illinois would be
more
good.
article to touch on.
I'm biased towards Illinois.
So talking a little bit about what it means that, like, why, like, I get the Iowa caucus was bad, but why should Iowa lose it? I get that the demographics are weird in Iowa. They're just not representative. But this is the big reason why Tom Perez came out. This article was written yesterday. Tom Perez came out today. I wonder if they have anything to do with each other. News broke that campaigns are ditching the DNC voter protection program in New Hampshire. What does that mean? Well, the leading Democratic presidential campaigns have quietly banded together to run a joint voter protection program on Tuesday, a program designed to bypass a similar operation run by the Democratic National Committee and the New Hampshire Democratic Party. Why? We can speculate. I believe two reasons. 2016, screw and Bernie, and how bad Iowa was. The reason why the DNC has to do this, they can't afford hits like this every election, you know?
Yeah.
And we can go through this. There's a little bit more here. Not terribly more here aside from that. Like, here we go. Although not all campaigns are actively involved, we are welcoming volunteers who are affiliated with any Democratic campaign or no campaign. But
there was a sad little line in this Politico article where it says, the Andrew Yang campaign is
not involved, but has been in touch. This was before Yang had announced he was dropping out, which is probably why he was not involved. But the larger point is not only does Iowa have these weird problems we described, it was so bad what happened in Iowa last week that campaigns don't even trust the DNC, the national party anymore. They're like, look, we have to in-house verify everything because we can't trust anything they give us. Dude, that is a trust hit. You can't just kind of like, we'll just move on anyways. You have to go back and you have to do something. So
plus it looks
announcing you might move it is a good response.
Well, yeah, plus it looks like they kind of changed the nature of the program, it seems. There used to be a lot of talk of voter suppression, but that's basically just been kind of this debunked talking point that wore out its welcome, because we've never had higher minority participation in votes. We've never had higher female participation in votes. We actually have had a really, really great track record as a country across all of our elections for having increased participation of groups that previously would be considered, quote, marginalized, right? When they say ad hoc and they're saying it's an after-the-fact program, I think they're much more worried about the correct tallying of votes because of these repetitive problems we've seen in Broward County. Because of these repetitive, the debacle in Iowa.
That was the last vote the Democrats did was in Iowa 1 week ago, and we still don't trust the results. I believe, and here's the other funny thing. I love this. What the IDP came out and said. They said, well, because representatives were at the caucus locations and physically signed all the pieces of paper, we can't recount those votes. But if people can prove to us there is wrong numbers, we can recanvass and try to recount the votes, which is just gibberish nonsense. And I don't think made any of these campaigns feel too confident. Because as far as I know, the DNC's response was, sounds good to me, because DNC was in charge of all this stuff. Like I say, the breakdown in Iowa is going to ripple throughout the entire primary season. And we're going to see more people calling for a dramatic change how primaries are ran. Thankfully, New Hampshire went on without a hitch, but we were talking the other day, Nevada caucus is shaping up to be an absolute disaster as well. If two of the first three states are just disasters, you have to do something.
Do you think they're going to change?
Just do nothing.
Do you think they're going to change caucusing altogether?
No.
You don't think so?
Do you?
Well, I was thinking about that. Tom Perez did an interview with, who's the sellout cheerleader on CNN? I forget them all in order. I got you, Cody. I had to put in the zinger. But
so you missed the 9 of those you already did because you don't even realize you do them. But
no. I wouldn't say it was 9. I'd say there was a solid 3. But he was asked. It was in the interview where he asked Tom Perez if he was going to resign or not. Okay, And of course, Tom Perez said, oh, of course not, so on and so forth. But they did talk about, well, why don't you outlaw caucusing? And what I'm surprised the CNN anchor didn't realize is that's actually a state constitutional decision. You know what I'm saying? How they're going to run their own elections.
I guarantee you national parties can just say we won't recognize those results.
So I was about going to say
it goes both ways.
That doesn't mean, though, that you literally stole the words out of my mouth. That doesn't mean, though, that like the DNC could say, we don't trust people electing with matchsticks written with Bic pens on them, as a form of voting. So we no longer accept caucusing either. And I'm not saying caucusing is bad. To me, there's something beautiful and old school about caucusing. I would hate to see it go away because I like some of these traditional methods of election. I think there's a beauty in that tradition. But at the same time, I mean, there's when you have this abysmal of a failure, calls to modernize, I mean, they cannot be ignored.
I've heard somebody say once, when an individual runs out of defenses, they will appeal to tradition every single time. That is the I have no actual argument. That, well, it's cool we used to do it, so we should keep it up. Why? What does it bring that's good?
No, I'm saying
I think traditionally we used to do it. Like once you get to the traditionally this is how things have been done, that's the I no longer have logic. No, I agree. I don't see a logical argument for a caucus. I don't.
I'm not saying you run out of ideas. I'm saying that if both are considered equal, I would err on the side of traditional because I think there is a beauty in preserving tradition. Okay. But yes, obviously they're not equal. And that's why I said when there's such an abysmal failure, calls to modernize can't be ignored. And then you come out here and you tell me that all I want is just some appealed tradition. No, I said literally. You can rewind it. I said, when failures are so abysmal,
Mr. Nail here is looking for the hammer.
Dude,
I was literally agreeing with you. I was saying the same thing. Yes, like it got to the point where the only thing left to say anything good about the caucus was it's a traditional thing we've done. And once you've got to that point, like you said, everything else is up.
But there is one thing that is better about caucusing, though. And this is the one thing that caucusing has. We've talked about all the negative effects. But the ability to persuade somebody on site by others who are politically in the know.
To me, that's a negative. To me, it's a net negative. That's why I don't agree.
Because you can go to a caucus.
No, I would love to show up to vote and get badgered by people who know better than me. That's what I want. I want to show up knowing who I'm going to vote for and have people standing in my face telling me I'm wrong and I should vote for their candidate. That's my dream. You know why caucuses drive down voter turnout? Because of that. People don't want to show up to a voting place and have people in their face explaining to them why they should drop their beliefs and join their side.
The science doesn't back that up.
It does back that up. Caucuses always have lower turnouts. It drives people don't want to show up to caucus because it isn't going and checking a box and leaving. It isn't sending out your ballot. It's showing up and being a part of this weird dramatic extravaganza for an hour. It's arguing your position with random people. A lot of people don't want to do that. That's why caucuses generally have a certain type of person who turns out every single time.
Okay, yeah. Iowa has tried twice, however. Once was specifically in 1916 and 1917 to change the system, and they said their turnout was so poor.
They tried it once.
No, I get, twice, 2 different years. I get it.
But what I'm saying
call it once, call it twice.
100 years ago, they tried something twice and said, screw it, never again.
I get that, but I'm just saying I think also a lot of these arguments may be cultural. What might be perceived as just like silly and taboo in California, I shouldn't say silly and taboo, but excessive and unnecessary in California might be perceived as something they like in Iowa. I'm not sure.
Other states caucus, and by and large, if I'm wrong, correct me, but I've seen data on this. By and large, caucuses have a lower voter turnout and a specific type of voter who turns out. The kind of person who will just pass, like the mail-in voter types that every other state has with primaries, or not most of them have, they don't show up to caucus, dude. They really don't, because like I said, an individual like me, the last thing I want is on the day of the election being forced to defend my position to some random supporter of an opposing candidate. It's the last thing I want to do, man. Last thing I want to do is have to explain to someone why I'm voting. No, dude, I'm here to vote for my candidate. And I think you lose that voter in a caucus. Now, again, if certain states want to do what they want to do, states' rights are great, but if you can't count the results, that's when it is time for the national thing. But just to get into the philosophical arguments about caucuses, dude, it drives a certain type of voter away. Well, also and a certain type of voter to the caucus. But it's not. I don't think that's the goal. to get a certain type of the kind of person who wants to show up loud and proud. Dude, there's people who just don't want anyone knowing who they're voting for. They don't want to stand in a room with their community and raise their hand for the candidate. I mean, like,
they are weak.
No, some people, you know what?
They are scared.
You could say they're weak. I say
cowardly.
Quite frankly, it's none of your business who I vote for. People who feel like that probably turn out to caucus less because guess what? Suddenly, it's not only do they know, it is their business who you vote for because they need you on their side. I don't like that.
Yeah, I could see that. And also, oof, that could be brutal if you had an unpopular candidate like Trump and you had to stand in that corner and all of a sudden somebody's like, hey, you see Frank over there? Yeah, let's go throw a brick through his window. You know what I'm saying? I could see a lot of people not wanting to show up to go for that experience. So, yes. So I think I'm open to all ideas. I'd be sad to see caucusing go because I think there was a coolness to it. You know, there was an authentic, like, you know, ride or die-ness to it. And I like that when people have to get off their duff to go participate civically. At the same time, if it is driving down participation, it could be having the reverse effect of what we hope it would do. Less civic engagement instead of more. So yeah, maybe caucusing has to go. Before I said it has to go, I'd want to know what's replacing it. But then again, it's not my state to decide. California's been doing. I mean, California has what percentage of us? I'll have to look this up, but I remember it's an absurd percentage. I think California is one of the highest percentages of mail-in ballot voters. Like my entire life, voting has basically been a mail-in affair unless you forget to mail yours in and then you just end up marching it to your election booth and handing it to them. But it's always the mail-in one that we used as a family. So the culture may just be different here. Anyway, let us know what you guys think. Please comment below if you'd like to join the channel. It's a cheap way to support all this content we provide you guys. If you can, follow us on PSP Radio 1 on Twitter or on Instagram at Problem Solver Politics. This is Problem Solver Politics. We'll see you guys in the next video.